What's up, guys? It's John, and today we've got somebody special with us. This is Jeff Bludman from Arm Dynamics. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, John.
It's great to have you on. Now, guys, you know from other episodes of Who Is, we take a look at people in the firearms industry, training industry, things of that nature, and we kind of delve into what makes them tick and what makes them more than just a faceless company. Now, Jeff, why don't you give these guys a little introduction as to what Arm Dynamics is, who you are, and how you got to where you're at right now.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you having me on your channel and thinking highly enough about what we kind of do at Arm Dynamics. So let me say that first and foremost. Yeah, Arm Dynamics is a full-time training company operated by me, and we do pistol, rifle, shotgun, and medical training. We've also got some other classes that we're going to be introducing. But I'd say that probably the makeup of our customer, if we want to look at it kind of in a reverse kind of fashion, would be about 90+% of private citizens, and the rest are military and law enforcement who kind of trickle in here and there. Typically, we have the law enforcement guys and military guys run from whatever kind of gear they're using, but we have it's more based for people that are going to be carrying from a concealed kind of position.
Right. So being based out of Philadelphia, you kind of get a lot of customers that are defensive minded. They want to get out there and be comfortable defending themselves, their loved ones, and things like that. And that's where a lot of your customer base comes from. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, ultimately, regardless of political ideologies, race, sexual orientation, none of those factors in my mind matter. Right. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're all a bunch of dudes and chicks that need to go home to our families, to our loved ones, for another day, and live another day. So essentially where we come in is giving people very practical, very cutting-edge firearms training and medical training so they can go ahead and accomplish that goal of getting home safely to themselves and, and their loved ones.
Right.
Because, that's kind of, I guess, my mantra, if you want to call it that. As far as what we do with like how do we run our guns and how do we do all that, I am definitely a very big proponent of taking the martial artist perspective, or approach rather, to the firearm.
Okay.
Okay. So, and I think that if we as a community, if we as a firearms-oriented community take more of a martial approach, it would be a better community. And some of the tenets of martial arts would be respect for others. Never misusing your martial art, whichever form or discipline it may be, and really just a high level of respect for other people. So that's kind of where I start off.
I think that's really, really interesting. There are definitely not a lot of companies coming from that perspective. So I think that gives you kind of maybe a leg up on some of your quote-unquote competition or counterparts, because it's a different perspective, and that is valuable because it's different. And that's it. Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's people see value in getting different kinds of training and putting that into one idea that works for them. And I think that's awesome.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And it's something that like I've been doing martial arts for I calculated the other day, about 23 years.
Wow.
Various different martial arts, on and off throughout the years.
Mm-hmm.
Life kind of happens sometimes. But those are kind of some of the overwhelming, overarching tenets that I think I try. We're human, but I try to apply in my everyday life. So taking it from that approach, and the other kind of dynamic would be that, coming from a martial artist background, it's not merely, drawing out your gun, getting out the full extension and firing that firearm. We have to also take into consideration the fuller picture, okay? Mm-hmm. So, for example, firing from retention, being in an entangled kind of fight, and with the ultimate goal being, stopping the bad people from doing the bad things they're doing to yourselves and your loved ones. Okay, and that's my ultimate goal. Right. And to present it in as simple a way and as principally driven of a way as I possibly can. That's one of my goals as an instructor. Right. And thus far, I think we're doing a pretty good job. We've always got work to do, but boil this shit down to brass tacks, make it simple, make it repeatable under stress while moving. Ideally, there's sometimes when we're kind of limited in being able to be mobile, in order to accomplish something. But yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts behind the training methodology and where my approach is.
I think that's really interesting because, some of the older ideologies of, forgive me for saying this, but the NRA techniques are antiquated in my opinion. I find that situations are dynamic, and training such as what he's talking about are very valuable to have.
If I can touch on that.
Sure.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I'm friends with, for example, one guy, Jose Morales. He's got Philly firearms training, and he's an NRA instructor, and that's kind of his bread and butter. I think that there are certain different levels and certain different things that need to be accomplished when we're talking about a firearm. For example, I don't think that there's, I would take one of Jose's classes over and over and over again to get my fundamentals absolutely squared away, because, like, I think, as far as this is concerned, is that shit's going to be the equation that we're trying to solve, whether it be with our hands, okay, with a firearm, with a knife, with a tool, is going to be complex enough. So if I boil it down to brass tacks and get my eye, the rear sight, the front sight, and the threat aligned, and give that good solid trigger press, okay, good linear trigger press, then that's setting myself up for success. Everything else is probably going to be a shit show. The equation itself is going to be as complicated as, well, life is.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So reestablishing fundamentals, I think is very, very important, and that becomes, this. If we're using like a scaffolding kind of approach, a building blocks, approach to learning, then if we don't get the fundamentals down, then we really ain't got shit.
Right.
Then we're just firing in the dark.
I completely agree with
Pun
that.
intended. However, if we're taught, so the NRA program at its face, I don't think is bad or antiquated. I think that once we get past certain fundamental stages, I think that that's where someone like Armed Dynamics comes in. You know what I mean? Is that fair in my assessment?
Yeah, that's
Pretty
completely
much?
fair.
Okay.
Now, I think that's actually really, really wise of you to kind of say that that's a building block, because it is. Now, the reason I look at it as antiquated is because I see, from my line of life, I see old men that go to the range and just, they don't even really practice defensive situations. They just target shoot and that kind of thing, and that's how I see it.
Right.
But what you're seeing is completely different and more of a defensive mindset.
Possibly, but this is also my perspective is that I don't really. It's rare that I go to the range and just shoot, because I don't have the time, money, etc. to just wait. Constantly sit there and just bang, bang. Bang. So I dedicate my time and I dedicate my money, in my training budget for ammo and all that other incidental stuff, to really making those range sessions, those training sessions, as worthwhile as possible. And that's where I think that studying with a company, whether it's Armed Dynamics or another reputable instructor, makes your whole entire experience shooting that much better, because we show you what and how to train.
Right.
What and how to practice, and more importantly for me is the why behind that.
I'm huge in all of my lines of life.
Right.
I'm huge on why is it the way it is? Why do I need to do something that way? Because then I can completely understand the methodology and expand on it within my own head.
And that then becomes the principle behind that kind of influences the rest of our choices. Right. You know what I mean? It's kind of like this constantly evolving thing, but some of my thoughts, I guess, on the whole entire training paradigm.
Right, and I think that knowing that principle allows you to apply it differently in all kinds of situations, and that's excellent to have in your repertoire, so to speak.
For sure.
Now, why don't we also give these guys a little bit of a background as to how you got here?
Okay.
Where did you start out? What made you go, you know what, I'm just going to start a training company? What makes Jeff Bluevman and Armed Dynamics special, and how'd you get there?
Well, what makes us special is, I guess I'm special. I'm kidding. No, I mean, we all have unique life experiences, whether that is military, law enforcement, whatever, kind of background that influences our life choices and influences how we approach things in general. I've had a rather atypical kind of background in that atypical would be not typical.
Right.
I always screw that up. Regardless, whatever. Right. English was my...
I hope people out there are smart enough to know that.
Right. But no, that was actually for me. Okay, that was for me. But check it out. I basically have been shooting since I was 6 years old, 7 years old. My father raised me around guns and stuff, and around martial arts. Started martial arts training when I was like 7, 8 years old.
Okay.
And I took my first actual formal class in about 2004. And it was just a basic concealed carry class. and I realized, oh my God, I've been shooting all these years, and there was like so much I didn't know.
Right.
And then it became this thing of kind of lit a fire under my ass, and I decided I'm going to take this. I love this. I'm passionate about this. I'm going to study this as thoroughly as I've studied, other things like martial arts and stuff like that. And that's kind of been my trajectory. I spent 5 years in New York acting, acting and directing, which actually gave me a really good, you would look at those two things and be like, wow, that's kind of eclectic, and how does that kind of correspond? Believe it or not, I mean, like I talked to some of my acting friends still in that community, and they're like, so when's the last time you've acted and stuff? And I was like, yesterday. Really, honestly, directed, because what we're trying to do, like as a director, you've got a vision in your head, an image in your head, a movie per se, of what needs to happen, the scene in your head. And you can apply that actually really nicely with a student. They need to come out of the holster with about as true of a 90-degree presentation as possible, get rounds on thread accurately, quickly, and then now I need to work in directing them to get them to be able to articulate and execute that act. So, and then the acting comes in with just being like a good presenter, I guess.
Right. And demonstrating and things like that.
And demonstrating, yeah.
That's actually a really interesting perspective. Being
kind of pretty. And so basically, taking that kind of approach and plugging it into what we're doing, and I think that kind of the proof is in the pudding. I could probably count on one hand how many people have taken one single private lesson or one single class with us. So we get a lot of repeat customers, repeat clients, and establish a really, in my opinion, a wonderful rapport with the students. Right. And it's so that's kind of one of the best things about being a firearms instructor. Is that rapport that you develop with people and seeing how they progress and seeing them be able to really, increase their confidence and their skill level with protecting themselves or loved ones. And that's kind of, as far as I'm concerned, there are very few things that I've experienced in my adult life, or maybe my life as a whole, where that's been more fulfilling. So that's kind of where I approach it from.
That's fantastic, man. That's great to hear. Guys, you all know that I'm kind of working my way into sharing my training with you guys, and Jeff is going to be there as part of it. We're going to work on some things today that you'll see. You may have seen one of them already. You may see some more later. We're definitely going to try to work with Jeff because he's local, and PA all the way. What is it? DeMarianolo, the guys from DeMarianolo say PA leads the way. That's right.
Those guys are awesome, by the way. Yeah, I recently met those. Those guys are
great guys. Great
awesome
guys. So what we're going to do, guys, is just say goodbye to Jeff for now, and we'll see you all later. Jeff, again, facebook.com/armdynamics.
Yeah,
correct?
We're Arm Dynamics on YouTube, we're Arm Dynamics on Facebook, and we're armdynamics.com.
That's fantastic.
So please, I'd be happy to have some of your viewership get involved. You'll notice there aren't any dickheads. I just weed them right out. It's all cool people. I encourage people to ask questions and get a dialogue going, an actual dialogue, and we have some fun as well. So.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of good information, a lot of fun training to take on your own via the computer and try, dry firing and that kind of thing. Jeff's got a lot of really, really good information over there. So definitely go check out his YouTube channel. Guys, if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to my channel. It's going to be awesome. We're growing every day, and I appreciate all the support you guys give me. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.